Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Hello everyone, welcome to Inside Delhi. George Orwell once said that right thinking will be rewarded and wrong thinking will be punished. What it means is that if you are thinking correctly, perfectly, as expected, then it will give you rewards. But if your thinking is entirely opposite to what is expected, then you will certainly be punished. Why I am mentioning this quote is because in past couple of weeks, after going through your answers, I I felt that a few of the students are not able to understand the actual demand of the question, and they are like writing and vomiting whatever they know on that particular topic. And obviously, because of this, because of the contextual irrelevance of their answers, they are not able to get the good marks. But there are also a good number of students who are able to write very contextually relevant, very perfect answers, and they are getting rewarded very well. So, the purpose is that you should, in this entire UPSC game, in this entire UPSC mains answer writing game, the actual thing, the most important thing is how you are able to run your thought process. Whether you are able to think as the question wants or as the question expects, or you are certainly not able to think or not able to understand the demand of the question. So with this, I would like to start this session. This session is on mains test series and the subject being basic concepts of economics. In this session, we will be discussing all the 10 questions of the test series. Those 10 questions pertained to basic concepts, basic definitions of economics, but still a good number of a couple of students are not able to understand the demand. So in this session, we will not only be learning the basic concepts, basic definitions, but we will also be understanding the right approach to write the answer. Let's start. So this is the first question. Distinguish between economic growth and economic development. As I always say, before you start writing an answer, the first thing that you should do is identify the keywords. If you are able to identify the keywords, majority of your work is done. So what is the keyword in this question? Distinguish. First is distinguish. The question is asking you to distinguish. Distinguish means to give a comparative answer, to differentiate between the two terms. What are the two terms? The two terms are economic growth and economic development. So the first part of the question expects you to differentiate, distinguish between economic growth and economic development. What is economic growth? What is economic development? If you are able to do this, then the first part of the question is done. The second part of the question says that in the context of contemporary policy challenges, why is it important for India to prioritize development over mere growth? Second statement, second part of the question is asking you to write why it is important for India to prioritize development, why India should be more focused, Indian policy makers should be more focused on development and not just on growth. So these is the two parts of the question. So before writing the answer, we identified the key terms very well. Now you should run the thought process. How you should be distinguishing these two terms, economic growth and economic development. For that, you will obviously be needing the basic concepts. What is growth? What is development? So let's start it this way, that growth is kind of a quantitative term and development is qualitative term. For example, consider it this way. If you say that India's GDP is 100 crore rupees, that is a quantity. 100 crore, 100 CR is a quantity. So this is called growth. That's why we say gross domestic product. These are like growth parameters to measure growth. But if we want to know about development, then we should be measuring about the overall well-being of the people. For example, what is the literacy rate, what is the mortality rate, and how people are performing, whether there is regional disparity, where there is caste or gender-based inequality, to what extent people are happy or they are not happy, is there freedom in true sense, or is there freedom in only in like काम चलाओ तरीके से freedom है. So this way it is like you need to understand. So here is some sort of short notes for you. You can like understand. Economic growth is like increase in national income or GDP, and development is improvement in living standards. When we talk in terms of the living standards of the people, that will be accounted, that will be understood as economic development. But if we are only focused on quantity, what is the income, per capita income, what is the national income, what is the GDP, what is the export, what is the import, if we are focused only on the quantity, that will be considered as growth. So nature is, one is quantitative, one is qualitative, plus quantitative both. In economic development, there has to be quantity as well, because we will be measuring like literacy rate with some numbers only. But the more focus is on quality. What is the quality of life standards? Then we have measurements. We measure economic growth in terms of GDP, GNP, but when it comes to economic development, we measure in terms of Human Development Index, Multidimensional Poverty Index, SDG India Index. Then there is time frame. Growth can be short to medium term, like we say India's GDP growth of this year, this financial year 2025. If we talk about development, that means the development has to be for longer time period. For example, it has to be sustainable. Then long-term sustainable change, that is also one more difference between economic growth and economic development. We can also talk in terms of inclusiveness. Growth can be unequal. For example, if we are saying that India's GDP is 100 crore, or for example, if you are saying that the per capita income of India is 100 rupees or 1000 rupees, that does not actually tell whether what is the level of income of all the Indians. Maybe the top 1% of the Indians are earning very high, and the bottom 90% of bottom 10% of Indians are not even able to have food 3 times a day. So there can be growth, can be unequal. There is a dimension of inequality in growth. But if we talk about development, it has to be, we need to talk in terms of inclusiveness and equitability. Development has to be inclusive, development has to be equitable. So this is a brief on economic growth and development. How you can write this? Either you can make a table to write the answer, like the answer is asking you to distinguish. Either you can make a table, or you can also write in bullet forms, or you can write using paragraphs. But make sure that you are able to differentiate between these two terms, economic growth and economic development. Then the question, what is the second question, is like contemporary policy challenges. Why is it important? Why India should be focused more on development and less on growth? So to understand this, first we need to have the contemporary challenges. What are the contemporary challenges? There is a rising inequality, there is like jobless growth in these days in India. So this is like, I have created some notes for you. So it is like rising inequality. Oxfam report recently said, for the past couple of years, it is saying that 1% of the Indians have accumulated 40% of the country's wealth. So it is like a very big, you can say, sense of inequality in India, that India is growing, no doubt, but there is also inequality is rising. Then jobless growth, India is growing, but still there is joblessness. Throughout the country, people are not able to get jobs. Maybe it could be because of any reason. Maybe it could be because of lack of proper manufacturing sector, development of manufacturing sector. Maybe it could be because of lack of skills. But the point is that the job growth is happening to be very much jobless. unemployment rate is very much high in India. People are not able to get a job to earn their living. Then there are also regional disparities. Northern states, for example, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, are not that as developed as the southern states like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, or Telangana. Because this is like reason being the investment, the industrial sector, or the administration, or the literacy, health indicators are much more better in the southern states as compared to northern states. Then there are other dimensions as well, like environmental degradation or poor human capital in terms of health and learning outcomes. So the point is that to address the contemporary challenges as asked in the question, you need to first of all highlight the contemporary challenges. And here are the contemporary challenges, the couple of dimensions. You can add a few more dimensions to these contemporary challenges that you can do. Then now this next part of the question is asking why India should emphasize more on development and not on growth. Means why India should not just be focused on the numbers that we are the fifth largest economy, third largest economy, but rather than why India should be more focused than what is our health, what is our mortality rate, what is our literacy rate, whether people are able to get jobs, whether people are able to live happily or not. So why? Because the need is to have social cohesion. For example, suppose if one group of the people are not able to survive effectively, not able to survive happily, then obviously there will be kind of social unrest. People might get envious. Someone is like traveling in a very costly car and the other person is not even able to have his like 2 times of food, 2 times of meal. So there will be some kind of social rift, you can say. One class is growing, the other class is not able to even have food. One class is living in high-rise building, the other class is not even getting to live in a slum. One class is like one class is like owning the 2 crore rupees car, and the driver of the same car is like earning 10,000 a month. So this kind of inequality is prone to like initiate some sort of social unrest. Then there is also, obviously we can mention something about sustainable growth, that the growth has to be sustainable, growth has to be long term. It should not be like mere short term 5 years 2 years का period में नहीं होना चाहिए. Then also global positioning. If India actually aspires to become a global power, global superpower, it will have to work on its development indicators. For example, you cannot aspire to become a global superpower when the global image about India is related to full of poverty. Like images are being shown throughout the India, how poor people in India are suffering, how untouchability is still there. So global positioning, for better global positioning, it is very important that India focuses on development and not just on growth. Likewise, we can talk about demographic dividend, and we can also talk about intergenerational poverty. Poverty is getting transferred from one generation to other generation, and richness is also getting transferred from one generation to other generation. If someone's Dadaji was very rich, and if the grandson Pota is also very rich, and if someone's Dadaji was doing some slavery kind of work and his grandson is also very poor, this kind of intergenerational poverty, or turn it other way around, Dada used to be very rich but the grandson became very poor because of the policy initiatives, that is also a matter of concern. And given these, India should be emphasize more on development rather than growth. So this way, these many dimensions I try to open. Dimensions where like all the dimensions were related to, some dimensions were kind of related to society, like I mentioned the term social cohesion. Then this growth versus development dimension is also connected with international relations when I open the dimension of global positioning. So this is like opening the dimensions. As many dimensions you can open, the better or more value added your answer will be. So this way you can approach and write the answer. Moving to the next question. This question is, in the context of changing consumption patterns during economic slowdowns and inflationary trends, explain the concept of inferior goods and substitute goods. Two terms, the question is asking you to explain inferior goods and substitute goods. What are inferior goods and what are substitute goods? How do these concepts help in understanding consumer behavior in times of economic distress? Consumer behavior and economic distress. Whenever there is economic distress, how can policymakers or business owners can understand consumer behavior, and how understanding this consumer behavior will be very much helpful for them, particularly in times of economic distress. So this is the overall. These are like keywords, and question is particularly asking you to use examples. It is not that you will only write the theory and you will get the proper marks as required expected marks. You should be mentioning examples, because mentioning of example is very much clearly asked in the question. How to approach this question? How to write its answer? The first thing is, this is the context. Some context is being said that economic slowdowns, inflationary trends, like these are the contexts. Is context में you should explain inferior goods and substitute goods. So what are inferior goods and substitute goods? Inferior goods are, inferior का मतलब ये literal meaning inferior, which is like not किसी दो चीज़ों को अगर comparison करें, one is better, the other one is not that better. So this lower one part is like inferior and one is superior. So goods goods for which demand increases as income falls. If income is falling and the demand of a particular good is increasing, that good will be called inferior good. For example, suppose you are eating basmati rice. Okay, basmati rice is a bit costlier. So you are eating basmati rice because your income is say 50,000 a month, you are earning 50,000 a month and you are eating basmati rice. But because of some poor times, economic distress, or your industry slowdown, your income falls and your income comes to 20,000, 25,000 a month. Will you still be eating basmati rice? Might not be, because your income has fallen. So you might be shifting to some other forms of rice, other types of rice, which are a bit cheaper as compared to basmati rice. So that type of good will be called inferior good. For example, suppose you shifted to some sasta wala rice, 30 rupees kg wala rice. So that rice will be considered inferior goods, because as your income level fell, your demand for that good increased. So this is the definition of inferior goods. It is like, as mentioned, like coarse grains, public transport, instant noodles. These type of examples you can give in the question while you are defining inferior goods, like the basmati rice and the common rice example I gave. You can also mention public transport versus private transport. If someone is having enough money, that person may be going with his own car because he or she can afford the petrol or maintenance charges. But if the income is not that well, that person may be like getting a bus pass on a monthly basis, and that person may be using public transport. तो ये भी एक अच्छा definition inferior goods का हो सकता है. But then what is like substitute goods? Substitute means replacement. Like substitute means replacement. If one is not working, one is not affordable, one is not available, I'll be replacing it with someone else, something else. Right? So it is like goods that can be used in place of another. the good which can be used in place of other. For example, suppose you used to tea, simple tea, but your income increased, and now you thought that why will I increase tea? Why will I have tea? I will have a very good coffee. So you increased your expenditure and you replaced the tea with coffee. So that is called substitute good. It is like if price of one rises, demand for its substitute rises. So this substitute goods is mostly related to price. For example, suppose take the example of tea and coffee. Suppose you used to drink coffee, but the coffee was costlier and coffee's price also increased. Then in that case, you might be shifting to tea because tea is a cheaper alternative. So the price of one increased, that made you to replace that good with some cheaper item. So that is called substitute good. Please understand that inferior goods में income का aspect is related and substitute goods में price का aspect is important. See, both cases where price is important and what we can buy, what we cannot buy, that is obviously related to our income. But in substitute goods, the price of that particular good is considered. While defining inferior good, our income is considered. It is like the same example we gave, like tea and coffee, petrol and CNG also we can consider. So this way we differentiated, we distinguished, or you can say we explained inferior goods and substitute goods. Now the question is, how do these concepts help in understanding consumer behavior? How, if some policy maker or some business owner is able to understand the kind of difference between inferior goods and substitute good, how will it help them? So the first thing is that it helps policy makers and retailers, businessmen understand what products gain demand and how to plan subsidies or stocking. If business owners or policy makers are able to understand inferior goods and substitute goods, they can plan properly that the economy is in this shape. Maybe the demand for tea is growing, so we should stock and we should produce more tea. Or maybe the price of basmati rice is declining and the other coarse rice is increasing. So maybe we should stock more of coarse grain than basmati rice. So this is like very basic fundamental thing that a policymaker or business owner should be able to identify. So if there is rise in food prices, people will shift from basmati rice to coarse rice, branded oil to loose oil. So this sentence, decision making aspect of policymakers and business owners, the decision making aspect, like what to stock, किस चीज़ पे सब्सिडी देनी है. Suppose कीजिए किसी essential item का price increased. For example, consider the price of salt to be increasing 100 times. आज नमक 50 रुपये किलो मिल रहा है. Suppose कीजिए उसकी price 500 रुपये हो गई, 10 times बढ़ गई. Then government or policy makers may intervene by starting giving to subsidies. Salt को subsidized rate पे दे दिया, and they may also take decision. For example, whenever there is what is called onion prices are going up, like it happens every year, then government bans the export of onion. Government starts importing onion. Governments start bringing in onion from its government-owned channels at very subsidized rates. So these are something that can be done if the government or policy makers or the business owners are able to understand the concept of inferior goods and substitute goods. So this way you can write. The third question is, as India pushes for manufacturing growth, under schemes like Make in India and PLI is Production Linked Incentive Scheme, explain the role of fixed and variable cost. Again, two terms are being asked, fixed cost and variable cost. What are fixed cost and what are variable cost? If you are able to define these, if you are able to explain this, first part of the question will be addressed. How does understanding cost structure help firms respond to policy incentives? Right? Two schemes are being mentioned over here, Make in India and Production Linked Incentive Scheme. Two schemes are being mentioned. The second part of the question is asking that if the concept of fixed cost and variable cost is very much clear, then how it will help the firms means businesses or business owners, how it will help them to respond to policy incentives. Incentives are being given under Make in India and PLI. How can firms and businesses can benefit properly from them? The question expects you to establish its connection with the concept of fixed and variable cost. So first thing, you should be able to define fixed costs and variable cost. Fixed costs are the costs that do not change with the output level. Fixed cost मतलब ऐसे cost which is fixed. For example, a shop owner has taken its shop on rent. अब उसने मेन मार्केट में रेंट पे लिया है और उसका रेंट इज लाइक 20,000 रुपीज. सो दैट रेंट इज ऑलमोस्ट फिक्स्ड. चांसेस हैं कि वो फ्यूचर में ग्रो ही होंगे, कम तो होंगे नहीं है. राइट? सो दैट इज अ काइंड ऑफ फिक्स्ड कॉस्ट. Take another example. A business owner, a factory owner installs a machine of 10 lakh rupees. So that is also kind of fixed cost. And then what is variable cost? Costs that vary with output. Output के साथ vary करे. अगर किसी चीज का production, if the production is increasing, then the chances are that the cost of the particular item will also increase. For example, take it like suppose a company stitches shirts. शर्ट बनाती है, शर्ट बनाने की कंपनी है. If the company is making 10 shirts a month, okay, take it like to make 10 shirts, it will be needing 10 meters of cloth, right? But if the demand of its shirts increases from 10 to 20, maybe the demand, maybe the requirement or need for the raw material, that is cloth, will also increase from 10 to 20. So this is a kind of variable cost. Like raw material, the raw material that is cloth to make or stitch the shirt will also increase if the output, that is the cloth, that is the shirt, increases. So this is variable cost. But fixed cost will remain the same irrespective of change in the output level. Doesn't matter if the shirt is being sold at the shop, doesn't matter whether he sells 10 shirts or 20 shirts from that shop, the rent will remain same, right? So that is fixed cost and variable cost. So the role in competitiveness. This dimension you can open up in your answer. What is the role in competitiveness of these two terms, fixed cost and variable cost? They're like high fixed cost lead to economies of scale needed to reduce per unit cost. If the fixed costs are very high, suppose for example the same shop wala example aap le lo, suppose the shop is located in a very prime locality, then its rent will also be high. Same shop owner, one shop owner is selling goods of 1,000 rupees. Two shop owners, both the shop owners are selling goods of 1,000 rupees per month. पर एक शॉप ओनर की जो रेंट है, शॉप का रेंट है, दैट इज 100 रुपीज एंड द अदर शॉप ओनर विच हैज ओपनड इट शॉप इन अ वेरी प्राइम लोकेशन और वहां पे उसका रेंट इज 500 रुपीज. This is a fixed cost. Rent is a fixed cost. Output is 1,000 for both of them. But because this rent is very high for one shop owner, the per unit cost for this shop owner will also be high. So it can be said that this shop owner will be able to save less than this shop owner. In that case, the competitiveness of these two shop owners will also vary. So to understand this competitiveness wala aspect, it is very important that the shop owners or the business owners are able to understand the concepts regarding fixed cost and variable cost. That is why this is the very big reason, like before starting any business, a firm, a person thinks very properly about his business costs, and that actually makes someone a very good businessman. If the person is not able to understand the fixed cost and variable cost, chances are that his business will go down, because he has not or she has not calculated properly, he has not understood properly the underlying concepts of running a business. The same way for a variable cost, if the variable cost for per unit is lower, the better price competitiveness, competitiveness ज़्यादा अच्छी होगी. If someone is sourcing raw materials at a lower price and the person is making finished good from the low price source material, will obviously be more competitive, more profitable than the other company which is like sourcing raw materials at a higher price and has to sell it at the same price. So profit margin competitiveness actually depend on the concepts of fixed cost and variable cost. These are very generic concepts. इकोनॉमी के बुक्स में आपको बहुत जेनरिक तरीके से मिलेगा, but these concepts actually apply in to run a business. That's why this question is in front of you. This question is asking, expecting you to connect two things, very basic economic terms, connect it with the contemporary things. That is the thought process you need to run. So the firms that understand that cost curves, like this way you can elaborate, we just discussed in very much detail. Like you need to connect with the question terms like Make in India and production linked incentive schemes. So like the firms can target policy incentives better. For example, PLI gives incentives based on incremental production. So firms with lower variable cost can scale up faster and claim more incentives. Investment decisions can also be made very effectively if firms are like able to understand these concepts. For example, if logistic cost is high, firms may invest near ports to reduce variable cost. Same thing, like I gave examples in terms of raw materials, you can give examples in terms of logistics as well. Also, technology upgrades. If suppose a work is being done by 10 people, okay, 10 laborers are doing a work and the productivity is very less. If the business owner understands that investment in fixed cost like investment in some AI techniques, investment in some good software, investment in some good automation machineries will increase its productivity. So the business owner can do cost benefit analysis, कितना invest करना चाहिए so that his or her productivity and business can grow. तो ये सारे डिसीजन लेने के लिए it is very important that the business owner understands the concept of fixed cost and variable cost. Moving to next question, in the context of rapid digitalization and automation, two terms, digitalization and automation, very contemporary terms. Under initiatives, again two schemes are being mentioned, Digital India and Industry 4.0. Examine how technological progress influences the supply curve of a firm. Technological process, the connection of technological process is to be established with the supply curve of a firm. How technological progress influences supply curve of a firm. That is the connection the question is expecting you to establish. What implications does this have for productivity and market competitiveness? The implications are being asked in two contexts, productivity and market competitiveness. So it is not that you can write anything. You will have to write at least focused on these two terms like productivity and market competitiveness. इन्हीं दो context में you need to connect the technological progress and supply curve of the firm. So how to approach the answer? First thing is that you can start with some kind of technological progress. What is technology? You can give example of internet, you can give example of like manual record keeping, हर बात को register में manually entry करना, but then came the computers, the shop owner, business owner starts using computers. That is also a kind of technological upgrade. Instead of using like register and mentioning everything manually, if the business owner starts using computer or MS Excel file or like some tabulated format, or for example consider like recent AI based techniques, obviously it is kind of technological upgrade and it is expected that it will increase its productivity. So technological progress increases production efficiency. So first you can, like in the introduction of the answer, you can define technological progress with some example, and then you can shift to the actual demand of the answer, which is technological progress increases production efficiency. Technological progress increases production efficiency. How? Automation. Like I gave the example, if you are using robots, if you are using some computer softwares, if you are using machines to lift some heavy items instead of using laborers, that is a kind of automation, mechanization, and that will increase output per worker. Some earlier one worker was 10 workers are able to do the same work in 10 days, but using automation or mechanization the same work can be done in 5 days, for example. So that is a kind of increase in output. AI, data analytics as examples you can mention. Also faster turnaround in process. For example, take the recent like customer satisfaction, customer services. They are like, because of the use of technology, the customer services, the turnaround time, response to customers, fulfilling of their orders, that turnaround time has reduced. So it is like faster turnaround time in processes. Then technological progress also lowers marginal cost of production. This is like related to again output, or like how many workers are working and what is like the output of all the workers. So lower cost, more competitive pricing. If the cost is lower, pricing will be more competitive. Tech adoption creates differentiation. Yes, this is a very good valid point. Let's understand this. What is differentiation? If someone is adopting technology, then his or her product will be more differentiated as compared to others. For example, suppose these days if someone is teaching, like I am using this digital board, in place of me, if someone is using that old fashioned chalk and board which we used to have like in our schools, so it is like there is a differentiation. We are using some digital modes, like it is very legible, very easy to understand, and someone is using like some boards which cannot be like very easily read, which cannot be easily understood, or suppose the voice clarity is not good. So that kind of differentiation. For example, take another example of Lays. Very important example, Lays. You must have eaten Lays, that chips something खाया है. क्या वो chips किसी भी आलू से बन सकता है? नहीं. But so what is the differentiation here is that the Lay's owner, the company, has procured or researched on some particular type of potatoes, and using that potatoes, they are making Lay's. So they used, इसमें टेक्नोलॉजी का कैसे यूज किया? They may have used some superior quality seeds. They may have used some superior quality of cultivation methods, better irrigation techniques, better sunlight, whatever it could be. With the help of technology, they got some improved quality of potato, and with that improved quality of potato, they are making Lay's chips, and that is the actual differentiation of Lay's chips. So technology also creates production or process differentiation. This is a very good example you can mention. Tech reduces entry barriers via digital tools. Very good, very excellent example because of the use of technology. Now, like technology has reached to such interior levels of the country that even like if you can see, if you are like very fond of social media, then you can find that someone residing even in rural India, they are also making videos and becoming social media influencer, which was not possible earlier days. Because of technology it is possible. Because of technology it is possible that people are able to study in remote areas of the country if they are having access to digital tools. Because of technology, it is possible that micro, small or medium scale enterprises are able to make sell very good sale of their goods and products to very far-flung areas. It is because of the digital tools. It is because of the digital tools that the small sellers are able to sell their products on platforms like Flipkart and Amazon. So this way, if you are able to give examples, this way if you are able to connect examples and open up the dimensions, obviously your answer will be very value loaded and very rich. Then we have this fifth question is, inflation is both a monetary and a structural phenomenon. First term is inflation. Then the question is expecting you to tell whether how it is a monetary and a structural phenomenon. The question is not asking you this. This is just a statement that inflation is both a monetary and a structural phenomenon. Discuss the various causes of inflation. Causes of inflation. Now the question is asking about causes of inflation, particularly in India. Make sure you should not miss this keyword. And evaluate the effectiveness of recent policy measures taken to contain it. So what are the recent policy measures to contain inflation? Inflation को contain करने के लिए what are the recent policy measures? How to approach the answer? So the first statement is mentioning inflation is both monetary and structural phenomenon. Then the question is asking you to discuss various causes of inflation. If we want to discuss various causes of inflation, should we write anything? If we are writing anything, then what is the purpose of putting this first statement? The first statement mentions monetary and structural phenomenon. That means if you are able to categorize your answer regarding causes of inflation in two categories, monetary and structural, then your answer will actually be as per the demand of the question. So, what could be the monetary causes of inflation? What could be monetary causes of inflation? Loose monetary policy. The monetary policy is very loose. Interest rates are very, or RBI is like reducing the interest rates, and that will lead to like high liquidity in the market. लोगों के पास पैसा ज़्यादा हो गया, डिमांड हाथ में पैसा ज़्यादा हो गया, डिमांड गुड्स की बढ़ गई, तो that will obviously lead to inflation. So it is like monetary terms में आप इसको easily connect कर सकते हैं repo, or you can connect it with CRR, how these interest rates, if any policy decision is taken by the Reserve Bank of India regarding these interests, how they can impact the liquidity and how the change in liquidity leads or affects the demand of goods and services. And if the demand is changing, then obviously it will be leading to inflation. It will be having a connection with inflation. तो इस तरीके से you can connect. Then also like global commodity shocks you can also mention. Like there is imported inflation. We are very much dependent on crude oil imports or natural gas import. So if the prices of those things are on higher side, then obviously that will also be lead to inflation in India. Then there are structural causes of inflation. What could be the structural causes? Perishable goods, logistics issue, onion price spikes, perishable goods like fruits, vegetables, ऐसे goods जिनकी shelf life बहुत कम है, that cannot tolerate very longer time. Like उनको अगर आप ऐसे ही छोड़ दोगे तो the fruits will go waste, they will get spoiled. So in that case, there has to be proper cold chains. Then logistics issue, how efficiently we are able to transport our goods and services, how efficiently we are able to provide our services, all these will come under logistics issues. Then again, oil import bill, that will also be a kind of a structural issue. Indian economy is in such a way that we are very much dependent on a couple of limited numbers of suppliers for oil and natural gas. Like earlier it used to be Middle Eastern countries. These days we are very much dependent on Russia. If any shock happens from this one particular country, oil price may get impacted in our country. So this is also kind of a structural issue. Then efficient markets, poor cold chains, like we just discussed. So this way, what is the purpose over here is that in terms of monetary and structural causes, इस तरीके से you need to define or categorize inflation. How monetary issues, how structural issues can lead to inflation. Then the question is asking you to evaluate the effectiveness of recent policy measures taken to contain it. It मतलब inflation. Question is asking you to evaluate. अब recent policy measures की बात की जा रही है तो obviously you will have to mention some recent policy measures. What were the measures? RBI was like raising repo rate so that liquidity in the market can go down. Liquidity कम होगी, देन उसके बाद डिमांड लाइक विल ऑल्सो बी डाउन. तो इस तरीके से यू नीड टू एस्टैब्लिश द कनेक्शन. देन एमपीसी इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग. एमपीसी मीन्स मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी कमिटी, द कमिटी विच हैज़ द टारगेट ऑफ 4 ± 2%. इस रेंज में इन्फ्लेशन होना चाहिए. उसी के हिसाब से मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी कमिटी टेक्स डिसीजन वेदर टू इंक्रीज द इंटरेस्ट रेट्स और नॉट. सो दिस वे यू कैन लाइक दीज टू measures you can give in terms in context of monetary issues. Then you can give administrative measures which are taken by government. What are the administrative measures? Whenever the prices of wheat, onion, these are like going up, whenever it is happening, government is either putting a stock limits or government is either putting up a ban on their exports. Then are also duty cuts on edible oils, fuel. These are the recent policy measures, and not recent, these keep happening every year, keep happening very often. So these are some of the policy measures you can mention in your answer. If you can give such examples, obviously your answer will be very value loaded. Moving to the next question, in the context of recent global economic uncertainties and shifts in domestic growth patterns, okay, economic uncertainties, growth patterns. The question is asking you to explain the 4 factors of production. अब इससे सिंपल कुछ सवाल हो सकता क्या? सिंपल आपसे पूछा जा रहा है व्हाट आर द 4 factors of production, और वो पूछने के लिए the question is giving you some kind of context. How does the performance of each sector impact national income and economic stability? The question is not only asking about factors of production, the question is also asking you to establish the connection between the factors of production with the national income and economic stability. So the first thing to write the answer is that you should be able to write about factors of production. So what are factors of production? Land, labor, entrepreneurship and capital. These are the 4 factors of production. What land meaning is its natural resources, soil, water, minerals. These will come under the category of land. Labor means human effort, physical or mental. Capital means like machines, tools, funds. All these will come under capital. Entrepreneurship is like risk taking and innovation, combining other factors. What is the reward for all these factors? Reward for land is rent. Reward for entrepreneurship is profit. So these way you can like simply mention, and then you can like connect their relevance today. How land is very much relevant today. You can write that land is very much relevant because India's population is growing, demand of food is growing, demand of houses is growing, but we have limited land. So like land is very much critical in agriculture, mining, energy security. Even if India wants to set up more factories, हवा में तो सेट करेंगे नहीं, we will be needing land, but land is limited. You can connect it with the land issues, land acquisition issues, जो भी है उससे you can connect because that is very contemporary context. Then you can, for entrepreneurship, you can connect it with the startup ecosystem, how startups are growing, how everyone is trying to start their own business. So this way you can like connect. if you want to, for example, if you want to connect with the capital, you can connect like how much fund a company or a person is having, or how much fund a business is having. That fund will decide to what extent it can invest more. So this way you can, like, it is all about connecting and giving examples. Then together these factors means all these four factors of production, they determine size and growth of national income. Obviously, if we are having surplus land, we can set up surplus factories. If we are having surplus labor, and if we are having surplus funds, we can invest the funds in good factories in our surplus land, and our surplus labor can get employment over there. So obviously it will be leading to increase growth in income. Then there is a stability across sectors and regions. Suppose we have very surplus land in a particular region of the country, we can establish factories over there. Then are also ability to withstand global disruptions. If we have our own factories, if the supply chain is very much strong, if we have our own logistics, own factories to produce the critical goods, important goods, then obviously we will be able to withstand global disruptions perfectly. So this way you can connect all the factors of production with national income, growth. You can also connect it with the global economy. So this way, establishing of connection in this way will obviously be giving you good marks. So this question is regarding, in light of increased public expenditure and changing private investment sentiments in the post-pandemic recovery phase. Pandemic is the context. The question will be asking you, giving a context, or you can say a background of pandemic time, distinguishing between ex ante and ex post investment. This is a very, like you can say, most of you might not have heard about it, or even if you have heard about it, most of you have like ignored it. So ex ante and ex post investment, these are very good two terms related to types of investment. We will be discussing it in a while. How does understanding this distinction help in assessing economic planning and performance? How does understanding this distinction assessing economic planning and economic performance? If policymakers or business owners are able to understand the difference between ex ante and ex post investment, will it impact their economic planning and performance? This is the demand of the question. So first thing, what is ex ante and ex post investment? Ex ante means before planning level investment. We planned something. If we are saying that we will be investing, India will be investing 100 crore rupees in this field, that is kind of ex ante. Ex post investment means we planned something. What is the actual investment? That is ex post. So ex ante investment planned by firms, governments in advance, and ex post is actual investment undertaken during a period. What is the basis of ex ante investment? Business expectations, future demand, policy. Like why a government or a business owner will plan its investment? Obviously, it will be planning its investment based on certain expectations that the market will be performing this particular way. Why a business owner will plan to open up 2 factories for his shirt, open up 2 factories for his car? Why he or she will plan? Obviously, he will plan with the expectation that the demand for his products are growing. So to meet the demand, the business owner has to invest more. So that is ex ante, based on future demands, policy signals. And what is post investment? What are the realized profits? What are the market responses? What are ground conditions? First the business owner planned, first the person planned that I will be setting up 2 more factories for my car to make more cars. The company plans to build more cars because the company expected that the demand for its cars are growing. But after setting up, after like sanctioning the payment, maybe the market realization makes to think them otherwise, that maybe the market won't function that well, and what is the actual investment they are making? That is ex post investment. The same example, like outlay by government in 2024 is 11 lakh crore rupees. And then what is the actual spending? It is like budgetary estimates and actual estimates. So this way you can differentiate ex ante and ex post investment. Then the question expects you like why this distinction matters. This is the actual demand of the question. Understanding this distinction help in assessing economic planning and performance. So the question expects you to write why this distinction is very much important. So for that, we need to understand policy planning and evaluation, implementation efficiency, delivery gaps of public investment. If we are able to assess, if we are able to analyze the two kinds of investment, our like efficiency, planning and evaluation will be improved. Then there are also like divergence between ex ante and ex post investment. If there is a big difference between these two, there will be inventory accumulation. For example, the company is set up 2 additional factories for its cars, and like earlier it used to produce 10 cars a month, now it is producing 300 cars a month, but the demand of car has not picked up. The demand of car is still 100, then the 200 extra cars will add up to its inventory. Then employment fluctuations also may happen because of these, like how much we are producing, how much profit we are earning, and accordingly to what extent the business owners or policy makers are able to generate or give employment. Then mismatch in savings and investment balance. This is very much obvious. Invested everything, having very less savings, that is a very poor planning. So to have proper and effective planning, differentiation, distinguishing between ex ante and ex post investment is very much important, be it for policymakers or business owners. Next question is regarding in the context of rising demand for quality infrastructure, digital access and environmental protection, explain why public goods are typically provided by the government. You need to explain why public goods are typically provided by the government and what challenges arise in ensuring their efficient and equitable distribution. Asking about challenges in distribution. What are the challenges in proper, effective, equitable, efficient distribution of public goods? First thing, before you write the answer, the first thing that you should do is define, elaborate on public goods. What are public goods? These are non-excludable, non-rivalrous. Two very good terms we can use, non-excluders and non-rivalrous goods. Those are called public goods. What is mean non-excludable? Like can't stop the non-payers. For example, suppose a rural road is being built by the government. That is a public good because government has built the road. You need not pay for it, even if that is actually built by the payment of taxpayers. But will only taxpayers use that road? No, even the poor people will be using that road. So it is like a kind of good. You cannot exclude anyone. आप किसी को रोक नहीं सकते उसको use करने से. So that is like unexcludable part. If it is unrivalrous, means it is like if someone uses, availability of that good is not reduced for others. That is unrivalrous. Like the road is the same, like 10 people are also using it, the entire village is using it. Is it the case that if someone is using 10% of the road went away and only 90% of the road is remaining? Obviously not. So public goods are non-excludable and non-rivalrous. There is no profit incentive for private sector. Private sector always, or you can say mostly, works with profit motive. In context of public goods, profit motive won't work, because if it is only about profit, then like how the poor people can pay? They to can't pay. So it is like profit incentive for private sector is not available when it comes to public goods. That's why government steps in to fund and provide. Private sector will not be interested in building road in some rural India, but private sector can be interested in building a big airport, because airports there will be full of taxes, entry taxes, plane taxes, very lots of shops, expensive shops. Rich people can go and pay. So to build an airport in a profitable area, airport building are also not in every area, only in profitable area for metropolitan regions, private sector will be interested. But to build a road in rural area, private sector might not be interested. Likewise, non-rivalrous, difficulty to charge users separately. We cannot differentiate when it comes to rural road. The owners or the builders cannot differentiate. You are poor, you need to pay. You are rich, you also need to pay. That kind of differentiation is not possible. That's why public financing and regulation is very much important in context of public goods. Regulation is also very much important so that public goods remain equitable, accessible, like everyone can access it, and it should not be like hoarded by couple of only like limited number of people. So this way you can explain public goods. After you explained public goods, so the question was, another question asked, challenges arise in, what are the challenges? So what are the challenges? You can talk about free rider problem, you can talk about inefficiency in provision. What is free rider problem? This type of key terms, if you are using in your answers, obviously your answer will stand apart from other generic answers. So what is free rider problem? Citizens benefit without contributing. Like I gave the example, the road was built by the money of taxpayers, but not only the taxpayers are using that road, even other people are using that road. So free rider problem. Then inefficiency in provision, inequitable access, urban bias. Private sector is mostly focused on urban metropolitan areas for their investment because of their profit orientation. Then we have financing constraints. Public goods require huge financial investment. To build a road, to build a flyover, lot of fund, lot of money is needed, required, and private sector won't be doing it unless and until the private sector has the assurance that his or her money will get back to him. So this way you can connect, and you can tell, you can write how, what are the challenges with respect to private sector, with respect to public goods when it comes to equitable access. Next we have, in light of the growing role of the gig economy, next question is about gig economy. This is very much in news in recent times for past couple of years. Growing role of gig economy, digital platforms and informal sector. Three terms: gig economy, digital platforms and informal sector. Three terms are written over here. In shaping India's economic landscape, discuss the various ways in which an economy can be categorized. Okay, categories of economy. In how many ways you can categorize an economy? That is a demand of the question. To understand the question, it is giving you some context, latest context. Gig economy, digital platforms, informal sector, these three kinds of contexts are given, and the question is asking you to discuss the ways in which an economy can be categorized. कितने तरीके से इकोनॉमी को आप कैटेगराइज कर सकते हैं, किस तरीके की इकोनॉमी हो सकती है, लाइक कैपिटलिस्ट इकोनॉमी, मार्केट इकोनॉमी, सोशलिस्ट इकोनॉमी, इनफॉर्मल इकोनॉमी, फॉर्मल इकोनॉमी. We will be discussing in a while. However, how do these classifications help in formulating inclusive economic policies? So what is the purpose of this qualification, this classification? If economies are getting categorized or classified, why they are getting classified, and how they help in formulating inclusive economic policies? So this is the question. So first thing, what could be different kinds of categorization, classification based on sector? Primary sector, tertiary sector, secondary sector. This is very common, very basic. You must be aware of this. What is primary sector, tertiary sector, secondary sector? Then by organization, whether it is formal economy, informal economy, to what extent it is regulated or unregulated. Employment type, whether it is wage, regular employment, self-employed businesses, casual or gig. What kind of employment the economy is providing. Based on this also you can categorize the economy based on ownership. This is also very well known. Public sector, private sector, mixed sector. This is also very common. What is the mode of operation? These are something very new. These are like something very new additions to your notes as well, because till now you must have studied about classification based on sector, classification based on organization, classification based on ownership. But in the evolving scenario, in the evolutionary phase of the economy, their economy can also be classified based on mode of operation. For example, whether the economy is offline based or digital platform based. राइट इंटरनेट के आने से इकोनॉमी कैसी है, ज़्यादातर इकोनॉमी का जो बिजनेस है दैट इज ऑफलाइन मोड और ऑनलाइन मोड, डिजिटल मोड. देन वी कैन ऑल्सो कैटेगराइज बेस्ड ऑन इनकम लेवल, like organized by quintiles or deciles. These are like different kinds of classifications you can like mention in your answer. We can also talk about more latest things like platform based economy that is growing. Uber, Ola, Swiggy, Amazon, these are platforms, these are aggregators which are providing aggregating certain kinds of goods and services to the consumers. So this is a platform based economy. Then there is also shadow economy, which is like working informal unaccounted cash based businesses. Social sector economy is also there, NGOs, cooperatives. This has been in news very much, cooperatives. And then like self help groups. These are like dimensions which you might not be able to get in your standard books. But if you are well through current affairs and if you are able to apply your mind, if you are able to think properly, you will be able to add these contemporary additions to the classification of economy. And if you are able to do this, that will certainly be giving you extra marks. Then we can talk about how these, what is the question first? So the question is asking how do these qualification, first part of the question we addressed, second part of the question, how do these classifications help in formulating inclusive economic policies? So connection of these classifications with inclusive economic policies, how it is possible. So like targeted welfare, social security schemes for informal workers. If the government is able to classify the economy in informal and formal sector, if that classification is very much efficient and perfect, government can actually know how many informal workers are there and what can be social security benefits can be provided to those particular informal workers. Then tax policy also, government can provide, for example, GST exemptions for particular sector which is actually needing some kind of support or assistance to grow. Then government also can work on employment regulation like social security codes, labor codes. Government can bring those codes. Digital inclusion. If suppose there is a growing digitalization of the economy and the growth of economy will depend on to what extent digital services or digital infrastructure is accessible to the public. If this is the factor, then government can actually identify the areas or region or the sections of the population which are lacking access to digital services. The government can track those who lack access to financial services. For example, financial services is just an example. It could be anything like education-based services, health services. If government can track who is having the access of digital services or not, government can track and provide them those sufficient services, making the accessibility more perfect. Then we have balanced growth, which sectors are lagging and which regions are lagging. If for a balanced growth, it is very important that economic classification is made perfect so that government or policy makers can understand which particular region is having lagging in growth, and they can understand and they can do balanced growth approach, balanced policy making. Gender responsive can also be there. What kind of works in which women are more working, women are more employed, Like there could be work like self-help groups which is more powered by women. So if government knows this, if the policy makers are able to identify this, they can make better policies to target for the benefit of the women. Or it could be any, not only women, it could be any marginalized group. So without classification, policy becomes one size fits all. This quotation I have specifically mentioned so that you can conclude it in a very punchy way, that without classification, policy becomes one size fits all, missing out on vulnerable groups or new economic reforms. So if you want to work, or if the economy is required to grow or develop for the benefit of vulnerable groups or in the context of emerging economic scenario, then the classification of economy has to be made very much efficient and perfect. The last question is about, in context of increasing digital marketplaces and open trade platforms, examine the key characteristics of perfectly competitive market. What is perfectly competitive market? इसके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स पूछा जा रहा है आपसे. व्हाट आर द कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ कॉम्पिटिटिव परफेक्टली कॉम्पिटिटिव मार्केट? मेक श्योर यू अंडरस्टैंड, यू रीड द वर्ड्स प्रॉपरली. क्वेश्चन इज नॉट जस्ट अबाउट कॉम्पिटिटिव मार्केट, क्वेश्चन इज अबाउट perfectly competitive market. How relevant is this model in understanding today's real world market dynamics? Today's real world market dynamics. So it is like आज के कंटेम्प्रेरी टाइम्स में आपको द कनेक्शन एस्टैब्लिश करना है कि इनका क्या रेलेवेंस है. फर्स्ट थिंग टू अंडरस्टैंड इज परफेक्टली कॉम्पिटिटिव मार्केट. परफेक्टली कॉम्पिटिटिव मार्केट के कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स, large number of buyers and sellers. What is, before that, first you understand what is competitive market. What is competition? Competition means there are a large number of sellers and buyers also, so that the buyers have the choice what to buy and what not to buy. If there are lots of sellers, then all the sellers will be competing with each other to attract the buyers, right? अगर आप एक सब्जी मार्केट में चले जाते हैं जहाँ से सब्जियाँ बिक रही हैं, देयर विल बी लॉट्स ऑफ सेलर्स. सबके पास आलू है, सपोज करो 5 सेलर है, सबने आलू रखा हुआ है, एंड ऑल दी सेलर्स विल बी ट्राइंग टू बी कॉम्पिटिटिव सो दैट उनके आलू बिक जाएं, दे कैन सेल पोटैटोज टू द कस्टमर्स. अब इसके लिए कंपटीशन किसी भी तरीके का हो सकता है, वेदर दे कैन लाइक ऑफर बेटर प्राइसेस, समवन इज सेलिंग 20 rupees a kg, the other seller may be selling it 19 rupees a kg, or they can work on better customer service. One is giving a very bad poly bag, the other one is like giving a very good packet to carry the potato. Or it could be like one is offering seat, place to wait, like suppose the vegetable market is very much crowded, one shop is has like benches over there so that customers can sit over there and wait for their turn, and the other shop owner is like, it is very much crowded and it is like not providing such comfortable services. So this kind of, you can say, this is like competition, that they are like, because of this competition they are working to enhance customer experience. So this is like competitive market. When we talk about perfect competitive market, see, perfect competitive market is not a reality, it is only in theory. This is the first thing that you should understand. Why? Because perfect competitive market says that there are a large number of buyers and sellers and none can influence price individually. This is not possible in reality, but yes, to understand the concept and to understand the different market dynamics, it is very much important that you understand perfectly competitive market. Homogeneous products. Homogeneous products means सारे प्रोडक्ट एक जैसे ही हैं. जितने भी वेजिटेबल मार्केट में जितने भी लोग आलू बेच रहे हैं, सबके आलू एक जैसे हैं, सेम साइज, सेम टाइप. It is like homogeneous. So in that case, it is said that perfectly competitive goods are equal, same type, same quality. That will make the buyers to be able to like, किससे खरीदूं, सबके तो एक जैसे हैं. So that is like perfectly competitive. Then free entry exit, the kind of market where anyone can enter and anyone can exit whenever he or she wants. Anyone can get into the shop and start selling their vegetables, and anyone can get out of the shop, get out of the business whenever he or she wants. This kind of free entry and exit is a characteristic of perfectly competitive market. Likewise, perfect knowledge, लाइक इंफॉर्मेशन कितना है लोगों के पास, प्राइस टेकर फर्म्स, जीरो इकोनॉमिक प्रॉफिट इन लॉन्ग रन, दिस काइंड ऑफ कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स यू कैन मेंशन टू एक्सप्लेन perfectly competitive market. But the question is, this is the first part of the question. The second part of the question is relevance of perfectly competitive market in today's real world market dynamics. So what are the real world market dynamics? First is where it applies to real world economic e-commerce. E-commerce businesses, Amazon, Flipkart, right? So there is price comparison platforms. E-commerce platforms are often provide price comparison. कभी अगर आपने ऑनलाइन फ़ोन खरीदने गए होगे तो वेबसाइट्स पे, चाहे जो भी वेबसाइट हो, दी वेबसाइट्स गिव यू कंपैरिजन, कंपेयर दिस मॉडल ऑफ द फोन्स विद सम अदर मॉडल. सो दिस इज अ काइंड ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन देना बायर्स को, कंज्यूमर्स को, so that they can make a proper decision. So that this is like giving competition. एक मॉडल के फ़ोन को दूसरे मॉडल फ़ोन मॉडल के सामने रख दिया, so that you can compare and both the models are competing with each other so that the buyers can buy. So this is like आज के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, today's market dynamics में, you can mention the example of e-commerce. Then you can mention commodity exchanges like MCX, NCDX related to markets. You can like mention. Then you can also talk about open source software like freelancers, gig workers. You can give the example of the company like Upwork, how they are like aggregating different kinds of freelance works and how people can like scout for jobs over there. These are like very positive aspects in today's market dynamics, very positive aspects, and these are actually telling that perfectly competitive market is quite possible in these evolving scenario. But there are also limitations. What are limitations? Branding, reviews, manipulated visibility, misleading reviews. These are like, you can give example, like if you are the same phone example and the same e-commerce example, there are lots of reviews. Before buying a particular phone, we are prone to go through the reviews, or review देखने में there are chances that some reviews are fake to entice the consumers, and there are also manipulated visibility because take it this way, if you have searched phone once on the website, the chances are that the website will be showing you more phones. Whenever you are logging into website, they will be showing you more phones because they think that you have not bought the phone yet and you will be interested in more phones. Then there is branding का भी एक issue है आज के contemporary context में. Someone who is having more funds, more tech, their brand will be more visible. तो इस तरीके से चीज़ों को you can connect. Then few platforms dominate. If you talk about e-commerce, how many platforms you know? There are hardly two. Others are there, but they are not that much competitive. They are not that much accessible or not that much popular. Only 1-2 platforms are there. Then there is cost related to technology, visibility challenges. So these are like limitations which say that current today's market dynamics, real world market, because of the technology, doesn't mean that they are going to be perfectly competitive. There are issues and limitations. There are. So this way you can answer this question, and this sums up all the 10 questions. The objective of today's session was not just to explain, we also understood how to open our several dimensions. Like in a couple of questions, we understood how to connect economy with society and how to connect it with geography. When we discussed that regional disparity वाला concept जो हमने discuss करा economic development और growth में, तो this way, like if you are able to connect, if you are able to open up several dimensions, that will obviously be giving you extra marks. So this way I would like to conclude this session. Hope it was useful. Keep writing your good answers and Keep incorporating the feedback that is being given over there. Take care. Goodbye.